It's really not very uncommon for me to get the question about what I eat on a keto or carnivore diet. And that's a pretty simple question for me to answer, really. I just share with people what I typically eat. But I get some other questions as well. Do you ever fall off the wagon? And do you ever cheat? And do you ever eat anything that's not keto or carnivore? And the answer to those three questions, not the same. Whoa, I don't want to rain on your parade, but that didn't make any sense. Now, I understand that might seem a little contradictory, but there's a reason why they're not the same. And for me, that reason is vitally important for my long-term success. And that really now is my focus. In the beginning, I was like everyone else. I mean, there's a ton of content out there for what is the keto or carnivore diet. There's a ton of content about how to do the keto or carnivore diet. But most of that content is focused on how to do it in the beginning. About, what can you eat, when you should eat, what about intermittent fasting, all of the keto flu, all of those kind of issues that you deal with when you first come into this. And look, I had all those same kind of questions. Keto and carnivore seemed kind of crazy to me. Like, what is that? And then I decided to kind of give it a whirl. And that kind of content helped me all along the way. In fact, it was absolutely instrumental in me beginning. But 4 years later, my focus isn't on what keto or carnivore is. It's not on how to begin, it's on how to finish. My concern is no longer about the next 18 months or the next year or losing a few more pounds. It's about how do I maintain successfully a keto and carnivore lifestyle for the next 50 or 60 years? How do I do this for the rest of my life? That's the question. And so as I began to roll that kind of thought around in my mind and really gave some serious consideration about how I would continue for the rest of my life, I realized there was a couple of things I had to do first. The very first thing, you have to really come to grips, an honest assessment with the kind of person that you are.
You know what that means? It's Latin. Means know thyself. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret.
And for me, I understand I am an abstainer. I am not good at moderation. I don't do moderation in anything, hardly. My wife, she's great at moderation. And if you're great at moderation, God bless you. But I'm not. My wife, she can stroll through a store, pick up a donut and eat it. And then, that very afternoon or evening, she's back on keto and carnivore and she may not have another donut for months. She just goes on her merry way and it's like nothing. Me, if I have to operate in moderation, it is going to end in a fiery ball of flame at the bottom of a jagged chasm. I don't do moderation. But I'm good at abstaining. The second thing I really had to come to grips with, and this is maybe harder for me, and maybe harder for some of you, and that's the way that failure impacts me mentally and emotionally. Remember, failing does not have to define you. Failure is a part of life. We all experience it, all of us. Failing is what we do. It's not who we are. And it's so important to understand this, especially if you struggle with weight your whole life like I have, because of the repeated attempts and failures at losing weight. And I've done it dozens of times. And every diet that I started, even if I would have success for 3, 4, 5, 6 months or even a year, those diets all ended the same way. They all ended in failure. You begin to get this gnawing thought in the back of your mind that no matter how much success you have, failure's just right around the corner. Like any moment, the wheels are just going to come off and it's all over. And I really had to come to grips with that because the drain and the impact mentally and emotionally on failure is not conducive to long-term success. If you always are thinking that failure's about to come, it just wears you down. It's just not healthy. So when I really come to grips with those two things, I understood what I needed was an approach that I could maximize my strength of abstaining and minimize the impact of failure on me mentally and emotionally. The approach I came up with is pretty simple. So, do I cheat? No. I used to cheat. Even when I started carnivore or keto beginning, I cheated. Cheating's when I would stop by the convenience store and buy a Snickers bar. I would eat all the consumable evidence on the way and then destroy the non-edible evidence, the wrapper and the receipt, before I got home so the wife never knew. I don't do that anymore. Do I ever fall off the wagon? No, I don't fall off the wagon. I used to fall off the wagon. You know, you pull into the gas station, you're going to pay at the pump, but you need the receipt. It's one of the worst things, by the way. It just really irritates me. The little sign pops up, see clerk for receipt. You walk in to get the receipt, you walk out with a Monster Energy drink, 2 slices of pizza, and an apple fritter. That's falling off the wagon. That is the beginning of a downward spiral that just ends in catastrophic destruction. I know from experience. I don't do that anymore. Do I eat things that aren't keto or carnivore? Absolutely. But when I do that is the key for me long term. I've simply said on holidays or on certain special occasions, there are no rules. If I want to eat pecan pie on Christmas, I can do it. Now look, that's not the 12 days of Christmas, right? That's just on Christmas. And as soon as Christmas is over, I immediately go back to abstaining. I don't eat things that aren't keto or carnivore. But if I want to have stovetop stuffing on Thanksgiving, well, then I'll have it because there's no rules on Thanksgiving. And that's how I maximize my ability to abstain and yet give myself the liberty and the choices of actually eating non-keto or carnivore food without failing or cheating. And that is what works for me. Now, I understand there will be people that say, look, that is really suboptimal. I mean, you should never put that stuff in your mouth. It is like poison. Okay, I understand that. But here's the thing. If you operate at perfection for the next 18 months or 2 years or even 4 or 5 years, but you can't maintain that for the rest of your life and you spend the next 40 years eating crap, well, that is certainly suboptimal. But if you can find what works for you for long-term, lifelong success on keto and carnivore, I mean, that's absolutely the objective here. If I can run it at 80 or 90% or 70%, but I can do it for the next 5 decades, well, man, that is vastly superior than shooting for perfection and then failing after 18 months. It is vastly superior than these short spurts of absolute, white knuckle discipline and I'm just going to press on forever. Now look, if you can go the next 50 years of your life and never allow any of those things to crush your lips, I mean, my hat is off to you, but I can't. And I just know that. I understand, even as good as I am as I am at abstaining, it's just not realistic. I'll not have success long term, but I can do this. I can do this for the next 50 years of my life. And man, that is the goal. So find what works for you. Make some assessments. Be honest with yourself. And don't beat yourself up that you're not operating at 100% of perfection. I mean, find the place where you can maximize your health and the benefits for the long term, because that is where you're going to get the most benefits. That should be really ultimately our goal, is that we can live the rest of our lives healthy and productive and leave a legacy, not just because we were around to see our grandkids and our great-grandkids, but so that when we are dead and gone, they can tell stories about, oh yeah, Granddad, he lived to be 106 and he just ate fatty red meat, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, and on occasion, he'd have a piece of cheesecake and a glass of Cabernet like I did at Father's Day. That's what we want to leave. That's the life we want to live. At least it's the life I want to live. It's the legacy I want to leave behind. And this is the way I know for me I can obtain that goal. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.